Welcome to another edition of You Can Farm Talks. This is a live video podcast series where we talk with people in the agriculture industry who share important and relevant information and insights for new and beginning farmers and ranchers. These are pretty short and focused conversations that generally last about 20 to 30 minutes. First, we asked our guests to share their story in agriculture, and then we asked them to talk about one thing that they think someone getting started in agriculture needs to know. For those of you tuning into the live Zoom feed, we hope you'll submit questions in the chat window. As we get to the end, I'll try to pick out a question to ask the guest. All of these shows are recorded and posted online on our webpage, where you'll also find an online discussion forum. You can ask questions in the forum anytime, and we'll respond to additional questions there that we don't get to during the live episode. Okay, well, our guest today is Amanda Winchester. Amanda is a professor of agriculture and meat science at Central Wyoming College, CWC, in Riverton. She's a native of Lander, Wyoming. She's been involved in meat judging for more than 40 years, both individually and as a coach. Amanda got her BS degree in agribusiness with a minor in agriculture from Texas A&M Commerce. And then she also earned an MS degree from South Dakota State University. Before she started teaching at CWC, Amanda owned a business in Lander, Main Street Books, and Hillmark Rentals. Amanda has extensive background teaching in agriculture as a substitute teacher, a livestock and meat judging coach. In addition, she's been a volunteer with 4-H for more than 25 years and is the Fremont County Sheep Superintendent for the fair. So, hello, Amanda. Welcome to You Can Farm Talks. I'm glad you could join us.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Well, we're happy to have you here. So, we're looking forward to visiting with you. And, we always like to start these off by giving our guests a chance to talk about their own story in agriculture. So I don't know if you grew up in a farm or ranch, but you've certainly spent a lot of time around agriculture throughout your life, working with, teaching people that are the future of the industry. So can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to this point in your life and career? Maybe a little more about how you've been involved in agriculture over the years?
Sure. So I did not grow up on a farm or ranch. My father was the county ag agent for 38 years. And so he drugged me around to every ag activity, 4-H, and even FFA that he could think of. So I showed market sheep. I judged livestock judging, dairy judging, and meats judging, which I loved and excelled. Dad kind of didn't always ask me, just drug me around, and I loved it. He showed me the passion for agriculture, and I just kind of fell in love with it. Yeah. I went to Northwest College, went right out of high school, and judged livestock judging for the college there. Got my associates actually in early childhood ed. My mom kind of talked me out of being an ag teacher at the time because there wasn't many ag teachers, which when I graduated there actually started to become female ag teachers, but it wasn't the normal back then. Right. I'm kind of aging myself, but I like you said, I have coached over the past 30 years, basically, for meats judging, taken several teams to national, to Denver, and to Kansas State. Wow. And of course, I have made my dad continue after retirement to help coach with me in the meats judging team. And so he has such knowledge, I just can't let him quit. But
it's only fair. He drug you around for the first few years.
I know,
now,
right? So, so I have worked within the FFA teams this last year, especially. I'm helping coach them also besides 4-H. I have, been substitute teacher and excelled in the ag classroom. That's really where I found my passion. So when my youngest son went off to college, I decided to go back to school, and then found some online courses in ag that I could start to take through Casper College. And then I could start to follow my passion. I should have done that originally, but life sometimes throws you a curve. And so I found other ways, to stay active in the industry. But I got my ag business and a lot of animal science at Casper College, and then transferred, like you said, to Texas A&M Commerce, and got my ag business and an ag degree. I tried to take as many ag courses as I could, just for knowledge. It's my passion, and I just wanted that knowledge. And so my goal was to teach. And so this new program at Central Wyoming College came open about the meat science program, and I wanted to be part of it. Whether I was teaching, I wanted to be there as a volunteer. I didn't care. I wanted to be part of it. I went on to get my master's in ag ed through, like you said, South Dakota State University. I started that program a month before I got hired on at Central Wyoming College. So I was finishing starting my master's as I was starting a new job full time. And it's not, and it wasn't a normal starting a new job. This was a brand new program that had all these pieces that they had bought with a grant that didn't really have a structure yet. So I basically had to take my business knowledge and history and design this program and put it together like a business, because the meat industry is a business. Even though we're educating with it, it still is a business. And so I got to combine my love of meats judging and the knowledge of meat science and the ag business degree that I had to help pull this program together. And so we are in the process of getting a 2-acre building finished on campus that has a meat lab in it. And so we'll have a teaching meat lab, and we'll also have a USDA lab that we will be able to process animals for customers and still be able to teach the students everything from food safety, dealing with humane handling, to, the whole slaughter fabrication, dealing with the customers, the end product, packaging, labeling, all of that. So that facility. Right. And so it's been a lot to pull together, but I was so excited that they gave me the opportunity to do it. Like I said, I was going to be part of it, whether I was hired or not. And I even told them that in the interview that, I am passionate about this. I believe in this, and I want to be part of it. So.
No, that's exciting. And that's a great story because, you talked about following your passion, and that's kind of the way I'm sure that there are people when we talk about the new and beginning farmer group that are following their passion of, this is what I really would like to do, but I'm not really sure how to go about it, or there are always obstacles that kind of come in the way. And, it's all about trying to figure out how do you make a plan and overcome those obstacles. So, it's kind of a great story about how you kind of have made it into doing what you want in the agriculture sphere. And, and I think that's a great story for for someone who's trying to decide, boy, how am I going to get there from here? So that's great. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I really, wanted to go back to school and follow my passion. And if it weren't for online programs, I could have never just picked up and moved. So I'm very thankful that I got to do that. And then got to have this opportunity at our local college to be able to teach. I love sharing my passion with the students, and they can, I say kids a lot, but they're not always kids. They're, they're anywhere from 18 to 65. And so, I'm excited to share the passion about the meat industry. And so it's pretty exciting.
We're all kids at some level, right? We're all kind of learning. We're all kind of growing, right? So, that's great. No, that's a great story. And I think that's exciting. It sounds like there's some great resources that you have there, and I'm sure you probably end up touching on them again. But, as we talked about, the other main purpose of this video podcast is we like to have our guests share something that we call their one thing, right? In other words, it's one thing that they think that new and beginning farmers need to know, or keep in mind, be thinking about, be doing, some information that really, as they're getting, started and taking on this challenge of being maybe starting an agricultural operation. So I know you have some thoughts as a meat science professor and someone who's been involved in meat processing for many years about opportunities that are related to some of these smaller processing facilities. So Amanda, please tell us about your one thing that you want to share with our audience today.
So one of the colleges and my own passions is trying to help producers with their bottom dollar, and at the same time help the community be able to eat locally. And so, those two work so well together. If we as the industry can provide more processing opportunities for local producers, then they can get processed locally, and then they can then feed our local community. Our goal at the college eventually is to have our own herd, to AI them, to have the students learn how to AI them, pull the calf, feed the calf out, learn feeds and feeding, and then eventually I process them, and then we feed our cafeteria. So that's basically the same thing, as far as the community for producers, being able to have the knowledge that there's opportunities and where they can have it processed, and then how to then maybe support local as far as feeding our local community. And so it's all about educating the community to know what the difference is between eating local and eating what's at the grocery store. And that all helps the producer. The producer can then have more money in their pocket. They can also brand themselves. They can, then provide a great product for the community. So, I guess that's really the one thing, that I want to talk about is how the state has increased their processing ability to help those local producers. So estimated slaughtering capacity has doubled from 20,000 in 2022 to 45,000 in 2022. 2020, was the 20,000, and 2022 was the 45,000.
Wow.
And so, the government got during COVID and realized that the meat industry needed help, the local processing plants, because, when you went to the grocery store, the processing plants, the big ones got shut down because of COVID and things. And so they were trying to find ways to help the local processors to be able to provide, more service for the communities. And so they put a lot of grants out there. Now, some of the grants weren't so great. You had to have a big pocket of your own to be able to contribute. But they're also finding that they're adding more grants out there to help those local producers become, more online and become USDA plants. The difference between a USDA and a state plant, for those that don't know, is the state inspected plants are only inspected during slaughter. They're not inspected all the time. And so during USDA, you're inspected during every aspect, from the morning to the slaughter, to the fabrication, to the end product, to the everything. But the benefits of having that is that you can then sell it out of state. State inspected, you could sell in state very easily. And so there's benefits of both. But those grants are out there to help people become online with USDA. So as of 2020, it said that 3 plants were USDA, and now I believe there's at least 9 in the state that are USDA. So they've increased that a lot. I know that we became a USDA plant last year. We wanted to teach the students, all aspects of food safety, and having a USDA inspector there, you are, like I said, inspected on all aspects. And so I think it's great for them to learn that. I think we got so heavily reliant on the big four, not on purpose, but then the big four started telling producers what they were going to pay them. And it started to be that, that price in the grocery store was not being passed on to the producers. It was all for the big fours. They were making the big bucks. During COVID, when prices went up, the producers were not making that. And so, by allowing more processing plants within the state, it allows producers to have more options. Not always to just direct marketing, but also more options of processing their animals. Maybe they already have a supplier that they're selling to. They just needed more options. Or maybe the processing plant is buying it and selling it in their retail store too, which, several of them have that option within the USDA plants. And so It says here that some of the statistics I found that there was 11 state inspected and 27 custom exempt inspected. Let's see. Let me see if I can find some of my other statistics.
Yeah.
The annual capacity for processors to be 21,320 heads slaughtered at federally inspected plants and 14,300 slaughtered at state inspected plants. And so,
Wow.
the state of Wyoming is trying to build more industry options for producers, and I think that's really important. I know that a lot of people within even those plants have struggled to try to get in with us growing as an industry. And so there's always lots of room. But one of the biggest problems is employees. They can't find enough labor to fill those plants, even though we're trying to build the industry in the state. And so I guess that's where my program is trying to help with, is to train those people to go out and work in the industry to build that industry so the producers have more options to be able to slaughter in state. There was some, I was trying to, one of the statistics was showing that Orbis had done that we get demand met with slaughtering in the region is only 23%, that 77% of our meat in the state comes from out of state that we have to import, even though we have, more capacity and things. Meat processed from carcasses is only 1% demand met and 99% is from imports. So, all the grocery stores, all of that bring their meat in and aren't processed in state. So those are some of the things that we really are trying to help producers, have more options. And so, I don't know, I'm kind of rambling, but
that's great. I was curious. So if I'm if I, can you talk a little bit about how a producer, who may be your typical producer is probably thinking about selling their cattle to a feedlot or, selling it down that supply chain to some degree. But, maybe you could talk about how somebody who had a smaller operation or wants to explore some of these direct marketing opportunities, how they might interface with some of these smaller meat processing. I mean, are they going to go out and look for, are they going to want to work and partner with some smaller people? Are they looking for people to participate in programs? So just curious how someone might think about engaging if that was with that.
Yeah. So talking with several producers that started direct marketing in the state, they suggest that they, you don't go out and put your whole herd into direct marketing, that you slowly start out and process a few every time and then a few more and then build your base and build that, that customer base. And some of them are selling direct to some of the processing plants. I know our genuine meats buys from several producers and so that they have meat in their coolers. I know that 307 Meats and Laramie also does that. And several other places that even do some custom, they can sell some things if they purchase the animal and then have it. There's some ways around being able to sell some retail. So there are some options for producers to get in touch with some of the processing plants and build that relationship and build that customer base beyond just direct marketing. And so there's a lot of options out there. I know that, during COVID kind of changed the way that we looked at buying our meat. Also, people, our food, period. People realized that you can't always rely on the grocery store for everything, that sometimes supply chain issues happen. During COVID, many people started reaching out and buying directly from producers or even crops, buying their milk from the dairies or, buying some of their produce from local places. And so it really opened the eye of the consumer to realize, hey, I need to be aware of where my food comes from. And then they start to realize the difference in their food once they realize what it's like to eat something locally. You know, a lot of times the meat in the grocery store is not even from our country, you know, because of country of origin. You don't know where it came from. I'm not saying that all of it is, and I'm not saying it's bad, but if you can reach a customer base to show them, have them taste it, have them try it to see what the difference is from the grocery store to what your product is, you can start to build that base pretty easily. You know, we are all about trying to help our producers in our community, trying to figure that out and try to make connections. We have several programs. You know, we have a local market downtown that's a farmer's market that has a building that several producers sell their product at. So you can go in there and buy, you know, like you would in the grocery store, just pick up, you know, a couple packages of hamburger and some steaks and things, some produce. And a lot of those are coming online. And so a lot of those avenues are happening for producers. They just have to realize that they have that option, and then find processing plants that can help them, you know, make that connection to be able to sell it direct, or sell it to the processing plants for them to sell direct, or there's even some, I cannot think of the company that Tyler McCann had talked about the other day that he is starting to ship out of state through. There's a website that he can do that he can sell direct to. You know, in Wyoming, there's a shipping issue, you know, with sometimes the cost of shipping is more than the value of shipping something. But I think there's some options that are coming on board to help people be able to do that. Because, you know, branding Wyoming meat is pretty easy. People want that local beef. That's pretty easy to do. And so if you just can find that supply avenue to be able to get it out there, it really helps.
And I think that name probably goes nationally pretty well too when you talk about Wyoming, you know, beef. Another quick question I have, and maybe I was thinking as we were talking, we always talk about cattle and beef. You know, I was curious if there are any, and maybe not, but I don't know if there are any opportunities. Some people, if they, you know, goats, or if there's any poultry or sheep or any kind of in the processing world, if there's any, if you know if there are any options along those lines, or is it pretty much within the beef complex?
No, there's really no poultry processing plants in the state at all. You know, there's people that do it, that sell direct, like at farmers markets and stuff. But lamb, some of the processing plants, and here's the bad thing, is because you don't make a lot when you process a lamb. I mean, I think it's like $100 period straight. And you can make a lot more by processing a beef. But some of the plants are still doing like once a month or something to be able to do sheep. And so there is a lot of sheep producers in our area that have been struggling, having to take them to Colorado to process. And so I'm glad, you know, we'll be able to process sheep. And I know that like Genuine Meats in Riverton does sheep once a month. I think there's still a need. It's not huge, but I still think there's a need. Pork is one that most plants will do in the state, and people love to buy, you know, pork, and so that's a great one. Goats, there's usually not a lot of goat options, but I think that there are a few plants that do that in the state. I know that Genuine does, I believe. They do some yaks, they do some buffalo. I know that Cowboy State Custom Meats in Casper also does almost everything too. I don't think they do buffalo, but I think they do some yak, some goats, sheep, pork, and beef, you know, pretty much everything. And so, and you know, a lot of the goats are a lot of the 4-H and FFA kids. And so, you know, you kind of got to still meet that need for them. So we haven't processed goats, but, you know, it doesn't mean we won't. So,
so you've got some, processing there as well. No, that's great. It sounds like there are an awful lot of options out there, and a lot of different things you've touched on, whether a producer could sell and contract, or they could custom feed different types of animals you just talked about, but, you know, selling in state then on their side of direct marketing, but possibly shipping out of state. So I think that's a lot of great information. I'm going to go one of the questions. I was going to ask, I think somebody wanted to know if somebody wants information, is there a place to get started to learn about, if they want to think about contacting or learning more about their options on these things, is there a place you'd recommend? And we could, if there's a website or a place to go, we could even post that up on the forum afterwards. But I just thought I'd ask you where to go. Where's the first place they should check in? Should they call you at Riverton? Should they, explore the university?
I think that probably they could get a hold of me and I can send them to, a couple different producers that are already doing it. That would be great resources. And get them in touch with several processing plants and some of their options. I really think that, there isn't, I started part of my master's program, this podcast also called Whistler Cattle Company Podcast. And it was basically to show information, to teach people about the industry. And so kind of that is another area that I'm trying to pull people like you guys are to teach them about the industry, to bring producers, processing plants. Like I did one the other day about feeds and feeding, how it ends with the carcass traits and things. And so, I'm trying to pull that together, but there's not a lot of resources that I can just say, boom, go to and look at, but I could help guide them a little bit and I'd be more than happy to do that. So.
Well, that's great. And we'll put in that, we'll make sure we have a link in our forum to your podcast so that people can find that too and learn a little more as they're interested in. So that's great. Well, that's a lot. I guess we're getting close to the end here. So that was a lot of great information, and I really appreciate you sharing that with us tonight. I think that's really helpful for people and a lot to learn about and a lot to consider. So thank you, Amanda. I really appreciate you helping and sharing that information for us.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. I love talking about my passion, and I'm always open to help somebody. So.
Well, we sure appreciate it, and I know that people appreciate that, and it's people like you that help those people get going. So Thank you again.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, well, all right. Well, then, we appreciate everyone who tuned into this episode of You Can Farm Talks. Especially those of you who tuned into the live Zoom feed. The recording, as always, of this episode will be posted and archived on our website and on our YouTube page. If you have any more questions, or if you're watching the recorded episode and you didn't get a chance to ask questions, please feel free to send them via email. Even better, add them to the online discussion forum, where, as I mentioned, we're going to try to post some links and some information as well from Amanda's that Amanda has to share. We'll try to respond to as many questions as we can and put those answers online. Stay tuned for information about the next You Can Farm Talks conversation. We're going to be sharing details about who our next guest will be and when the episode will take place on our website or on our Facebook page. So check that frequently. Funding for this program has been provided by the USDA NIFA BFRDP program. We'd also like to thank Custom Ag Solutions, Right Risk, and especially our partners at University of Wyoming Extension. Also, CWC Riverton and Amanda for everything tonight. So with that, we'll sign off and thank you all for listening to You Can Farm Talks.